Hi friends, I got a order for a custom belt buckle that a person lost. They only had a faint picture of what they lost, and I had to kind of redraw it and make my own interpretation of the picture, but I did get that done and I got it approved by them, and so I'm going about building it. It's a very large buckle, and it's all sterling silver. It's inlaid with coral and turquoise, and I thought I would just show you the procedure that I would do to do this type of work. Here's the picture I drew, and hopefully you can see that okay. It's a horse leaping over a floral pattern, and it has different things out here. It has an initial here in the bottom. All these voids are going to be inlaid with turquoise or coral, red coral. Then all these blank areas are going to be engraved. It's a very large buckle. It's 5 by 3.5, and this is 16 gauge sterling silver here. I'm going to cut this all out, all the voids in it, cut the top out. Then I'm going to solder this down on another piece of 16 gauge sterling silver, and we're going to hard solder those together. Then we're going to clean it all up, and we're going to start inlaying the turquoise and the silver in here after we dome it and get our hangers and all the soldering done on it. The inlay turquoise coral will be done after all that's done. Then the engraving will be done, then it'll be all polished up. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go along and I'm going to mark where my voids are so I'll know that I don't cut out the wrong thing. And I'll be drilling holes in all these voids and cutting them out with my jeweler's saw. So stay tuned. Okay, as you can see, I've got all the voids. I marked all the voids. I drilled holes in all the different inlay spots. I'm going to take my jeweler's saw and I'm going to cut all these voids out. And then I will, at the last thing I'll do is cut the whole top plate out. And I'll show you that when I get that done. It's going to take me some time. Okay, after a couple hours work, I've got this top piece cut out here, and you can see I cut out all the voids on it. And right here where there's some engraving lines going down into the main part of the metal, I took a small knife and I cut along those lines just so I would get the imprint, so I don't lose that design and I don't have to transfer another design on here to see what I'm supposed to be engraving. So that helps a little bit. What we're going to do next is we're going to take this covering off of here, this white paper pattern, and clean it all up good. And then we're going to be we're going to cut this out a little bit closer, but I'm going to stay about 1/8 of an inch off of this top piece when I cut it. And then I'm going to center this up, flux it real good, and hard solder it down on here. So I'll show you that process next after I get this cut out and this cleaned up. Okay, we have the two pieces fluxed up. We have the aqua flux in between. We have handy flux on the back side and around the outside edges and on the top of this. We're just trying to prevent the fire scale. Now this doesn't lay flat. It should, but it's not laying flat for me. I think I am going to have to put a clamp over here. Okay, now we got our clamp down pretty good, so we'll go ahead and try to get it welded up. We want to mainly heat the back. We really don't want the solder climbing up to the top. Solder follows the heat usually. It's such a big area that we're soldering, we're going to start on this end and work this end first. When your flux turns clear, that's when you start soldering or adding the coil. Okay, what we got is we got this end pretty much soldered up. What I'm going to do is cool it down, clean it up, get some more flux all on it, and we'll start working the rest of it. Okay, we're going to start with phase 2 here. Okay, I got that all soldered in. What I'm going to do is cool it off, clean it all up real good, look at each and every void on it, make sure every pocket has solder all the way around, make sure the outside has solder all the way around, and generally just make sure I got it all soldered together, because when I go to dome it, if I don't, it'll separate. So I've got to make real certain, get it real clean, that all these joints and everything is soldered good. Okay, to show you that I'm not perfect, I'm going to show you this. I got it all cleaned up, and I identified using my microscope some areas, like right this area, one spot here, and this area right here, and then a little spot over here. Those areas aren't soldered down good. They're soldered down, but there's not any solder showing around the edges, which I like to see to make sure the solder's in those areas. So we're going to heat it, flux it with some aqua flux, and we're going to heat it back up. I'm using the aqua flux because I can see better around the areas after it comes up to temperature. Anyway, we're going to heat it back up. We're going to concentrate our heat in those areas and reapply some solder in those areas, and then we'll clean it up again and we'll look at it under the microscope and we'll see if it's good then. This is a pretty big buckle. It's 5 inches across, 3.5 tall. There's lots of voids and lots of areas, and you got to make sure that it's all soldered down tight. think I've got all the areas. Like I say, we'll clean it up again and we'll see what we got. Okay, I got this all soldered together, and I showed you that over here on the stone, and I checked it all over, cleaned it up, everything was soldered down good. I went ahead and cut it on out next to the sides of it, and then I took it out to my other shop and I domed it with a 6-inch pipe cap on my press. It's a pretty big buckle and it was a little difficult to dome, but I got it okay and I like the looks of it. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go in here in all these cavities, and I'm going to use this diamond bit, and I'm just going to clean up some of the solder in the bottoms of them that was ran over into them. Clean all it up, roughen it up a little bit so it'll take the inlay better. You can see how that roughens that up in this background with this bit, and that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to continue doing that on all of them, and then I'm going to turn it over and I'm going to start making the hardware for the back of it. We have to get all that soldered on before we put our inlay in. Okay, like I told you, I was going to make the buckle hardware for the back of the buckle, and what I've got here to hold the belt onto the buckle is a piece of 1/8 inch nickel rod, and I've bent that with a center piece here to center up the belt on it. It's also got a specific curve on it, and I've drilled 2 holes and marked where this goes here on the back of the buckle, and this is going to fit on there at a slant towards the back of the buckle. When it's soldered on, it's going to be kind of in that manner, if you can see that, slope towards the back close to the buckle, and that will allow the buckle to sit flat up against the body. The pin here, I've got where I want it, and I've made it also. I took a piece of 5/16 nickel round rod, I cut off a piece of it, and I took that same 1/8 inch nickel rod and I 70% hard soldered it into this 5/16. It makes a good peg for the buckle, and this will sit on here and be soldered in there about like that. That gives just enough height to make the buckle sit level with this put on the back, with the crossover put on the back of the buckle. So it's going to be similar to this right here once I get it soldered in place, and that should make the buckle sit real level. So next thing we're going to do is get these soldered on. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to solder the peg on the buckle. Okay, we got a good solder job on that. Now we'll move down here. Once we cool it off, we'll move down here and put the hanger on. Okay, I've got it repositioned to put the crossover on it to hold the belt to the buckle. these crossovers, when they're solid like this, I always solder one side, I cool it off, I check to make sure the other side's in position. Sometimes you have to push it down, get it reset. Otherwise you wind up with a crossover that's sitting crooked. So that's what we're going to do now. Okay, we have this side soldered. We put a clip on this side to hold it down in the hole good. We're going to heat this up, solder this side. Okay, we got a good solder joint on this side. So all the hardware is on the buckle. Next thing we'll do, we'll put this in some acid, get it all cleaned up good, and prepare it to inlay the turquoise and the coral. Okay, to show you what I'm doing here on the inlay, I got the buckle all cleaned up pretty well, and we're going to use coral and turquoise. And this is just a picture me and the customer developed. This is the way they wanted it and where they wanted the colors to be. So I'm going to go by this color chart as to where I put the coral, which is the red areas, and the turquoise, which is the blue areas. I get my turquoise for inlaying. I cut Kingman turquoise up into slices. It is like this here, and then I crush it and I get like this. So that's just to show you where the turquoise comes from. And then the coral I buy from Florida, and I have to crush it up too. And this is little pop top coral, and there's a lot of white in there. I pick through it and get the red pieces, and it works pretty good. It's fairly reasonable. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this super fast star bond, and we're going to set the stones into the cavity. And once I get them all set in there, we want them to be high enough to where when we sand it, it'll sand down to the top of them. And we're going to start hand picking all the pieces in each cavity, and then we'll put the super thin through a fill tip like this, and it will go in underneath all those chips and stick it down. And I'll let all that dry, and then we'll look at it, see if we need to do anything else. Then we're going to start filling the cavities with this heavy thin star bond, and we may have to put in other pieces and all, but we'll slowly do that. And this will be a process, a slow process, until I get all these cavities filled up a little above the surface. Then we'll start sanding it down to the surface and getting it prepared. So I'm not going to waste the film time to sit here and show you that how I'm putting all the chips in here and putting the glue in and all that. Just remember, I fill each cavity with chips first. I pick out the pieces I want. Then I put in the super thin glue. It soaks in underneath everything, and when it dries, they're all stuck. Then I start looking at it again, make sure I don't need to add anything. Then I'll put the heavy thin in and start filling the cavity over 2 or 3 processes until I got it nice and full. This star bond makes a pretty good glue for this, and when it's sanded, it's pretty clear and real hard. I haven't had any trouble with it. So I'm going to show you later on when I get some of this done, when I get it all stuck down with the first coat. I'll show you a clip on that. Okay, I'm just going to show you the process here. I've got the coral all, the first coat of super thin in. It's all glued in. I just put all these turquoise chips in, And what I do is I just take this and I just weep this into the cavity like that. Anyway, you just put it into those cavities, that'll stick the stones in place. I'll proceed to do all these others that same way. Okay, the next step in this inlay process, you can see here I've got all the stones in place in all the different voids. They're sticking up above the surface everywhere. I haven't filled them completely with the glue compound, but they're all stuck good, and I have the voids about probably half to 3/4 full of glue. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take a 180 grit disc, and I'm going to hit the tops of these stones, the coral and the turquoise, and take them down. And I'm going to be careful not to get the stones too hot. Anyway, I'll take them down close to the surface so I can see more where I need to add my glue. You want to definitely wear a mask for this, and probably need a glove because sometimes the silver will get a little warm. Okay, I'm going to show you progress on this buckle. We got it all inlaid. We got the glue all in it, and it takes about, I'd say, 5 to 6 applications, because every time you sand it, you'll find a little bitty low spot in your inlay, and so then you have to go back and you have to put some of that heavy thin glue in it, or whatever glue you're using, and you have to fill that and then come back, let it dry several hours, and then resand it. There is an activator for the Starbond that you can spray on it and it instantly dries, but I've found that it makes the glue frost, and I don't like all that white in there to try to get out. So I'll let it dry normally, and I'll usually let it sit about 7-8 hours before I go sanding it again. So I usually anticipate about 3 days to get this done. But anyway, I've got all the pits filled. I started sanding it with 80. I went to 120, 220. I'm at 400 now, and I'll keep sanding by hand. I only sand by hand. Now when the glue is thick, I knock it down with my orbital disc to get it on down to the surface. But once I get it down flat, I start hand sanding it. And I'll sand and sand and sand until I get it finished up to 2000 grit. I don't ever buff it. I do everything by hand because I don't want to eat any of my glue out of it. So then I'll go back and I'll start engraving it. So I'll show you the progress from here. Okay, got the buckle all inlaid and polished out, and went ahead and engraved it, and this is the finished product here, and you might see it better on the picture that I put right after the video. But anyway, all of this inlay is smooth over the top, and everything's level. It took about 6-7 coats of the Starbond to get this perfect, and I sanded it down, like I said, with the different grits of sandpaper, and then hand polished it. The engraving on this buckle is not real elaborate, but bear in mind I was trying to copy a photograph of a buckle that was lost, and trying to duplicate that buckle. So it's pretty simple engraving, but the details of the horse and the plants are definitely enhanced with a little bit of engraving. So anyway, I wanted to show you this. I hope this helps you not building this specific buckle, but building an inlaid buckle with coral, turquoise, and how you go about that. So I appreciate y'all tuning in, and stay tuned for more videos. Be sure you like and subscribe. Thanks.